Welcome to Made in Moray, the podcast that focuses on the successes and struggles of local businesses. Let's get started.
My name's G, I'm your host, and today I'm sitting down with Claire Doughty, who is the owner of Cd-Publicity. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, very welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about what the focus of your work is?
So the focus of my work is to help businesses and organisations get publicity for what they do. So it can be in various forms, but really the main focus is getting their name out there for all of the great things that they do.
And what was the inspiration for going in this direction and starting a company like this?
It kind of evolved quite gradually. My background is actually journalism. So I, spent time at university learning how to be a journalist and then in newsrooms. So I was always writing stories, not often about good things. Mm-hmm. And then it really just evolved from there. I left being a journalist, partly because my life took other turns. I had children and things like that. But the publicity side of what I do kind of followed me around. People would still ask for press releases, would ask for help in publicising something. Mm-hmm. So that just grew naturally. And so I progressed into making the business basically and making money out of it ultimately.
Wow. As a business person myself, it interests me an element like a press release. So what is that and how is it created and who does it go to?
So a press release is really just a news story that I write about whatever it happens to be. I work with my customers to identify what a news story might be. Sometimes we generate those news stories ourselves by doing something quirky or different or holding an event, that type of thing. And then I basically write the press release or news article and then distribute that on behalf of my customers to local, national press. It might be a niche magazine. It might actually just be for their own website or their blog or something like that. But really, that's when I use my journalistic skills because I sit down with the customer, interview them, get the quotes, put the story together and send it out. And I suppose in my line of work now, the great thing about that is that most of the time I'm writing about really nice things, good things, positive things, which is obviously different to when I was a journalist. I was often either having to handle or go and look for the not so nice things that happen in the world. So I feel like I've got the best of both worlds now in that I still get to be creative and write and deal with the news desks and the journalists, and I'm still in contact with my journalist friends, but I get to do the real positive stuff, which is fantastic.
So maybe the past set you up to do something like this. Your past experience allowed you to choose this kind of career as a natural progression.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I often joke that if I hadn't done journalism, I don't know what I would have done. I've always loved to write. I used, ever since I was sort of 8 years old, I wrote a diary every day. And, that was my kind of venture into writing. I've never been much of a writer, like a, like fantasy writer, imaginative writing. I like facts and getting those out there. I'm not very creative in that respect. That's how it started, really. And it was either journalism or try and be an author, which clearly I wasn't going to be because I'm not that creative, or then teaching, English and all that. And that wasn't something that I fancied. So journalism, I'm also dead nosy. I'm really nosy. And I think that to be a journalist, you can teach. Writing a news story is kind of formulaic, the who, what, where, why, and all of that. But you've got to be inquisitive enough and nosy enough and bold enough to go out and find the story and also understand what people want to read about as well and what the newspapers want to put in their papers. So you have to be inquisitive. And I'm not sure that can be taught. I think that's part of who you are.
Oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. So what kind of tasks are involved on a daily basis in the work that you do?
Oh, gosh. So my daily tasks are quite varied. A lot of I write probably at least 4 press releases a week, depending on what's happening with each of my individual clients. That's kind of, that's just normal for me. You know, that's just normal run-of-the-mill stuff. I help a number of my customers with their social media accounts. So that'll involve very basic photography. I'm not a photographer, but, you know, I do help them with very basic photography and scheduling and planning of their social media, you know, over the next month, 2 months, 3 months ahead. You know, we sit down with the customer, work out what it is they need to get across, what it is they're wanting to sell, if that's the type of business that they're in. And we plan that as much as we can. I suppose press release writing and social media, that's 2 of my main day-to-day tasks.
Do you find that the businesses already have the plan for 2 to 3 months ahead, or do you need to make a plan? No, they don't.
Oh, no, it just depends. So, no, I mean, some of the businesses, I've been working with them so long now, I tend to just handle it, which... because I've been with them so long, I'm almost a member of staff. So I know the businesses inside out, and that's why that works okay. There are other businesses that are new to me. So there has to be a lot more involvement from the customer, because clearly nobody knows their business better than themselves. And I need that guidance until I understand fully what they're doing. But no, usually what happens is, you know, with one customer in mind, I create my plan, they create their plan, and then we merge the 2 together. And I think that's a great way of working, actually, because they know what they need to get across. But equally, with my journalist head on and my head about what people will like to see and what, you know, the different social media platforms like, I can put across to them, well, actually, that's a great idea, but why don't we do it in video as opposed to just an image, or, you know, something like that. So it's very much a sort of fluid process, working closely with the customer to make sure that they have really good social media.
Do you find a difference between the media platforms? For example, is there a difference between what people need to put on LinkedIn as to Facebook, as to Instagram?
Yes, definitely. And it drives me nuts when I see that people have all of their accounts linked, because there's such different platforms. You know, nobody, you know, using the typical Facebook example, you know, everybody loves to see a cat. You wouldn't put a cat on LinkedIn unless maybe you're selling pet food or something, you know, business, you know, it's business to business. So, you know, I wouldn't be putting things on a business to business platform, you know, that actually, you know, is for a business to customer platform like Facebook might be. So no, you absolutely, it needs to be done differently. And of course, Twitter's very different because you've got less characters and all that kind of thing. So yes, it has to be tailored to each individual platform as well.
Is that something that is difficult for businesses to deal with?
I think that businesses do struggle with that, and I think that's why businesses like mine exist, because we're busy running. If you're busy running a business, as much as social media, publicity, advertising should all be part of that, sometimes it is the bit that gets put aside because you're so busy, you know, looking after your staff, looking after your customers, invoicing, you know, whatever, you know, I'm a one-man band, so I don't have to worry about all that. But, you know, I see what my customers have to do, you know, and that's massive for them. So that's where I kind of come in and scoop that bit up for them and hopefully help them and keep their name out there, fundamentally, is what I'm there to do.
Well, makes sense. How do you find clients for the business? Or maybe they come to you. How does it work?
That's a good question. Most of my work now comes to me through referrals. And actually a lot of my customers, particularly the ones in Forest, are linked somehow. So, you know, it's a really small community up here. So, for example, I work with AJ Engineering, but I also work with the Forest Heritage Trust. There are family members who work for those two organisations that maybe I don't know how it's come, but that, you know, they've maybe gone home and said, oh, Claire did this for us, and then, that could work for us as well. So, yeah, so normally it is via referral. I do go to networking events and things like that, but not so much anymore, partly due to time. But no, it's usually through word of mouth.
Do you think the word of mouth is the best form?
Definitely. And I would say that to all of my customers as well. It can also come back and bite you if you've been accused of doing something not so well. But actually, yeah, absolutely, because there's nothing like getting an actual referral from somebody who's liked, and I'm not just talking about my own business, I'm thinking of customers and things as well, and our own experiences in life. If, I say to somebody, I really liked that product, or I really like this, I think that, you're more likely to go and experience it for yourself if a good friend or a family member has told you about it.
With a lot of things happening on social media at the moment, there are very often negative comments that people leave. How does a company deal with that, or how should a company deal with that?
Head on. Okay. Absolutely head on. Bizarrely, over the last 2 weeks, it seems to have been quite prolific actually on social media. I don't know if it's getting worse or if I've just been lucky over the years I've been in business and I'm only just sort of feeling it now. But there has been 3 of my customers in particular have had some bad comments, and actually we just dealt with them head on. And up front, whatever it happens to be, if it's a complaint, say about service, we post onto that comment. We are very sorry that you experienced this. However, in order for us to deal with this matter properly, please get in touch with us directly via telephone. So whilst you still try and get it offline, but show the general public we're taking this complaint seriously and we're dealing with it. Head on, basically. Don't ignore it. If somebody leaves a review, any type of review, a good review, a bad review, respond to it. Thank the people that have left the good reviews, and acknowledge the people that have left the bad reviews, and try and find out what went wrong and deal with it. Yeah,
I think it's always a good idea, if there's a problem, to ask someone to tell me more about what the situation is, because usually problems are not because of just one thing, maybe many different things happening at the same time, and it's sometimes not easy to provide an instant solution to the problem. So it's worth communicating about it and exploring it and gathering more data. Yeah, absolutely. And there's been instances with some of my customers as well where, there has been, for example, a poor review, and they've used that as a learning opportunity. Okay, actually we did mess up then. We hold our hands up. We've messed up, but we've reviewed our processes. Thank you for making us aware that something didn't go right, and we've now put in steps to make sure that it goes right in the future. Oh, absolutely. And with bigger organizations, there's a lot of people who spend most of their time putting out fires. Yes. Because there's always going to be somebody somewhere making a mistake. Yeah. And I think there is a balance, though. I had an incident actually earlier this week where we'd put out a really positive story, and it went on a local newspaper site, and we were dead chuffed with that. And then there was 3 very nasty comments, and they were nasty comments. They were uncalled for comments. But we had to decide how we dealt with it, and we had a strategy in place. We monitored the Facebook feed. We would check in, were there other comments coming in that were similar, and we slept on it. Basically, I got in touch with the newspaper to let them know that I was concerned with how the conversation online was going, and they were monitoring it as well. And as it was, it fizzled out. Right. But we had a strategy in place of how, if we needed to, we were going to deal with it. We had a statement ready to go, and we looked at the comments. We also looked at who the people were that were making the comments, and we actually gave the general public the benefit of the doubt, in that actually if they look at who these people are making these comments, they'll realize that actually probably just wash over it and ignore it. And actually, sure enough, when I then got up the next day to check it, not knowing what quite we were going to face, actually 2 very nice people had put these other people in their place, and it had just fizzled out. As it usually does in news. What is it? Yesterday's news is today's chip paper, something like that. Usually it does fizzle out, but I don't know. I think I love social media, clearly. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I do. Yeah. But there are downsides, and this sort of people being able to offload their opinions and things like that without any kind of comeback or I can't think what the word is, without any comeback or responsibility, or actually thinking about how the individual behind that story might be left feeling. Because ultimately we're talking about people, and businesses are run by people, and people put themselves out there. And I feel very lucky that, I work with lots of great businesses, lots of great people who trust me
to write their story and put it out there. And I'm always trying to envisage, right, what could the outcome be of this? What are the potential comebacks?
Mm-hmm.
The story that I'm thinking about, I never in a million years predicted that we would have such nasty comments. And I'm quite glad in a way that I didn't, because I think that means I'm quite a nice person. That I never foresaw that these people could be so awful.
Yep.
However, it irks me that people use social media in that way. And I was at a workshop recently, and the guy, social media expert, and ultimately he said, if you're not willing to put it on a t-shirt and wear it for the rest of the year, don't put it on Facebook, don't put it on Twitter. And actually, that's a gauge that everybody should use. If you're not willing to say it to somebody's face or stand by it, in a face-to-face situation, just keep your mouth shut. Keep your hands off the keyboard and don't say anything at all. It comes down to my mum, mums and dads. If you've not got anything good to say nothing. And it does irk me that people just see something, feel the need to comment without thinking through, who is this affecting? How is that person ultimately going to be left feeling? How are my comments going to change anything? Well, and as I say, I've got this specific thing in mind that was just downright nasty comments and uneducated comments as well.
Yeah, and it happens sometimes. And I think it's important what you said about the idea about a t-shirt. If you're not going to print it on a t-shirt and wear it for a year, but I think stuff stays on the internet maybe forever.
Yeah.
So people have to be aware of the permanence of the message.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also to add to what you said, I think it's an Oscar Wilde quote that all criticism is autobiography.
Yeah.
So that when you do encounter the criticism, the person is saying much more about their past, their history, their story.
Themselves, yeah, absolutely.
And now I think in the modern world, most people understand that, and that's a good thing that people understand that.
I think so. And I think that's why, sometimes, not all the time, but in the, again, this story that I'm referring to, it fizzled out quite quickly because people are used to social media now. They understand, that a lot of the time what goes on isn't real. They understand that people can just make comments, maybe after a couple of glasses of wine without really thinking about it. So I do think that people do get that now, but it still needs to be managed, and people still need to have a little filter that they check before they post things online.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What else annoys me is when people are anonymous, like it's John 15 baggy trousers that leaves the comment. And it's like, well, could be anybody, and then when it could be anybody, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
A good example that I had recently was a restaurant that I represent. We held an evening that didn't go quite how we hoped. The food was spectacular, but the actual event itself wasn't great. And we knew that, and the next morning, unfortunately, there was a really awful review on TripAdvisor. So I responded straight away, within 20 minutes of it actually being posted. I responded and said, like I was saying earlier, head on, thank you. We were disappointed too. And, whilst such and such and such did happen, we can assure you that we did do our research, but we've been caught out as well. Please focus on the fact that you enjoyed your food. That's what we do well. Please don't let it deter you from coming back. I then checked the review, half an hour later, and it was gone.
Like they deleted it?
So for me, that was a result, because I'd just been honest and said, we were disappointed too. We're in talks with the organisation that held the event to find out why it went so wrong. We're doing our best to find out. We also actually rang round all of the customers and apologised because it wasn't what we expected. But I think sharing the fact that we were also kind of horrified with what happened, but also pointing out we're a restaurant. And nobody's complained about the food. Everybody's loved what we did. We tried something new and it didn't work. And again, just honest. Being honest, I think, is often the best way. We were disappointed as well, and thank you. We won't do this again, ultimately. And the review was gone. which was fantastic. That was a result for me because, it was a 1-star review based on something that we'd never done before, which meant the TripAdvisor rating and all that kind of thing was skewed. Yep. And they removed the review, which, I'm grateful to that customer for doing that.
Oh, yeah. And we have to be prepared to try some new things, because if we don't, we're not going to move forward at all.
Yeah.
So it is really important to do that.
I love pushing boundaries. I'm not creative maybe in a writing way, but in terms of, we were talking about the generating of news stories and things like that. That's where I am creative, in looking at an organization and saying, right, what can we do to get coverage? So I'm working with a customer at the moment for something over the May bank holiday weekend. And I'm quite excited about it. I don't want to say too much about it in case it doesn't happen. Yep. This group of people, they're not used to having a publicity person working with them. I'm kind of new. They're an old, I shouldn't say this I don't mean this in any disrespectful way at all. They're an older group of people who have never really experienced a publicity person,
right? But
they've totally embraced me and some of my ideas, which I love. And, there's a couple of things that I'm suggesting that it's not pushing the boundaries in that it's going to bring them bad publicity, but it's just different things. And I love that about my job. Another customer, I think I can probably say, AJ Engineering, fantastic company in Forres. I've had the pleasure of working with them for a number of years, and this year the business is celebrating its 20th year. So throughout the whole year, we've been holding different events and different sort of strategies to put the spotlight on the business, because I do think that 20 years in business should be celebrated. So, we were part of Murray Doors Open Day this year, an engineering company, how, is that really that interesting? Well, do you know what? We had over 150 people through the door. We had STEM activities for the kids, which is obviously really a hot topic at the moment. Yep. We had a barbecue, all obviously free to the public. But the purpose was, one, it gave us media coverage. Yep. But two, it put a spotlight on the business that people might not have known about. It might have, we're hoping that it's inspired the next generation of young engineers as well. So that was, these are just small things really, but it has generated publicity throughout the whole year for that one company, doing all these different wee events and stunts, if you like.
Yeah, and that wouldn't happen without bringing in a publicity person.
Yeah, potential. Yeah, exactly. And even if, a lot of the ideas actually, when I sat down with them probably at this time last year and said, I think we should have a celebratory year, I didn't come up with all of the ideas. They're an engineering firm, so they are creative people. Yep. And one of the ideas that they came up with was they've created this piper who's made out of aluminium. And he's now a sort of feature just outside Lidl in Forres. That's where he's situated. The reason for the piping is obviously Forres has big links with piping because of piping at Forres and all of that. Now, that wasn't my idea. That was somebody from within the workshop's idea. But had I not said, let's do some things to celebrate the 20-year anniversary, that might not have happened. And equally, even if it had happened, it might not have been on the front page of the local paper and in the engineering magazines that we got it into and all that. So that's where I sort of come in. It's using the opportunities either created by myself or, more importantly, by the customer, using those opportunities and basically exploiting them in a good way to get coverage and to get people's names or businesses' names out there.
Yeah, and if you can't celebrate your success, then what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we celebrate ourselves, and I'm in businesses, organizations, charities, I don't think we celebrate ourselves enough. We don't shout about ourselves enough. And I think, I'm a publicist, so that's what I like doing. Although I'm not very good, I'm doing this today, but I don't often do things for Claire Doughty publicity. Yeah. Because I'm busy doing it for everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. That's a classic story. The shoemaker's children have bare feet. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I always used to joke, although I have got better, but if a customer came to me, say for social media, I'd give them my clients' social media. Right, have a look at that. This is good social media. Don't look at mine. But actually, I have got better at doing my own social media. But you do have to schedule in time for it. To do it properly, you have to figure it out and schedule it and plan it. So again, that's where I come in, and that brings us back to the start of what I was explaining I do.
Absolutely, makes perfect sense. What are the hurdles that the organization that you have has faced, or that you have faced in developing the business?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
If you think about the context of maybe what it is that clients don't understand about what is necessary.
Yeah, okay. So I think one of my bugbears, and my customers, if they're listening, will know who they are because they get told off. Actually, and it's not actually their fault. I'm obviously not in their businesses all the time. Right. You know, I'm not sitting in their office. I'm not hearing everything all the time. So I do rely on them to tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are missed opportunities because they haven't recognized that's a cracking story, or that's a fantastic wee video, or that's a great wee interview. And that's not their fault. But it can be frustrating sometimes. And that's why I go to a lot of meetings. You know, I've got a customer it's a charity, but every other month I go to their committee meetings, not for any other reason, that things get discussed at committee meetings, and very often you'll get that little gem that I can go, I can do something with that. You know, I'm not there to really input into the committee meetings or anything. I'm just there to listen and learn. And that's another thing about my business. Although I'm not immersed, obviously, every day in each individual business, I'm on the phone regularly with my customers. I visit them regularly because, again, I have to understand what's going on within the business in order to maximize the publicity opportunities. So yeah, probably the biggest hurdle is actually getting the customers to remember to let me know, to share the information with me.
What would you say is the difference between two companies, one that wants to work with publicity and the other one that doesn't?
Success.
Okay.
I would say, you know, I think in this day and age in particular, you have to be out there. You have to put yourself out there, you know, whether that's social media, advertising, press releases, banners on the side of your building, you know, leaflets. I'm thinking of all the different things that I help my customers with. I think it is the difference between succeeding and failing.
Yeah.
I don't know any business that doesn't do any form of publicity. Yeah. You know, I don't do much, but I do network. And I'm here right now talking to you about my business. You know, so even if it's small, I don't think any business can survive without doing something.
Very true. How do you define a success from your perspective in business?
From my perspective, for my own business or for my customers?
You can choose, or maybe both.
Maybe both. So myself, success for me is being respected, actually.
Okay.
I'm not really money driven. I like to have money, clearly, because we all need money. But I'm not particularly flamboyant. So long as I've got enough money to pay my bills and look after my children and to live a nice life, that's fine. I'm not wanting to be a millionaire. You know, I'm really not driven by money. But actually, I think it's respect. And I think what I feel I've accomplished as Claire Doughty is a really good network of customers who I haven't necessarily gone out to them to get the business. You know, I'm not one of these people that really chaps on the door and says, I think you should do this. But as I said before, they've come from referrals. So somebody has said, I worked with Claire and this was the outcome and it was really great for me. And then that person's come and said, you worked with that person and they've said you did a really good job. And that actually means more to me than, you know, the money or anything like that. It's actually the respect, I think, that people have for me and I in turn for them, because it has to be a mutual thing. But yeah, I think that's how I would define success in terms of how I feel about my company. For my customers, I suppose success for me, it depends what it is. You know, success is getting it on the front page of the local newspaper. Success is getting 150 people through a Doors Open Day event that we'd never done before. Success is increasing footfall to an event that didn't have publicity last year but did this year, so the footfall increased. You know, those are successes for me as well, but ultimately they are my customers' successes.
Absolutely. You have a lot of energy that you are not just putting into this conversation but also into your work as well. Where does that all come from?
I think it's just the desire to ultimately help people get their name out there. I know it sounds a bit basic, and I keep coming back to that, but that is in essence what I do. You know, I love a story. I love getting news out there in whatever way that happens to be. You know, I keep harking on about the press releases, but actually, you know, leaflets. You know, one of my customers, we just do leaflets and they work really well for them. And actually seeing that leaflet come back into the shop because it might have a little voucher on it. You know, I just love helping people get what they need for their businesses, which I find kind of funny because I don't actually consider myself a businesswoman. Yeah. Even though I run a business, I don't feel like a businesswoman. But my energy, I don't know. I just love, do you know what? I just love meeting new people. And I'm really lucky as well that I have such an eclectic mix of clients. So I've got, I think I'm allowed to, I can name them, can I? Is that okay?
Yeah, I have no problem.
So, you know, Mackenzie and Cruikshank, that's a garden centre. Yep. AG Engineering, we've spoken about. I'm working with Forest Live, Party at Grants, which is a new music festival coming to Grant Park next year. I've got a solo piping competition, which runs every year in Eden Court Theatre. You know, so just those few. I've got others as well. I've got a restaurant. I work with Nem Bid, publicising all of their events. So I think the eclectic mix, you know, who knew that I'd be writing about engineering? Yeah. But, you know, I am. The eclectic mix and meeting such a range of different people who are all running different types of businesses, but ultimately with the same goal, which is to be successful and to market themselves via me. And I feel very lucky to work with such a great mix of people as well, because it gives me like different perspectives on things. And I also get to understand the challenges of each of those individual businesses or organizations and help them through some of those challenges sometimes. You know, Forest Live, Party at Grants, which I'm really excited about because I love events. That's probably my favorite thing. Okay. You know, I am getting more involved with the actual planning of the event, not just the publicity of, but helping with the planning of it and some of the licensing and things like that. And it's not completely new to me, but it is a different side of what I do. And I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying that challenge as well. But actually, fundamentally, I mean, some of my clients just use me as a sounding board. What do you think of this? And I can go, oh, well, actually, Ed, you know what? That worked for that customer. So, yes, that will work for you. Or, oh, we tried it and it didn't work, you know. Yep. So I don't know. I think my energy comes from just actually enjoying being with people and finding out new things, which comes back to me just being downright nosy.
Sometimes we need to be. Sometimes we do. What is it that you find difficult or you don't enjoy about the work that you do?
There's nothing I don't enjoy about my job, genuinely. And I mean, that sounds a bit cheesy, but actually there is genuinely no part of my job that I kind of go, oh, I've got to do social media today, or oh, I've got to churn out that press release today. You know, I don't feel like that. I genuinely like every aspect of my job. I think if there were aspects of my job I didn't like, I would very soon get rid of them because life's too short, to be honest, you know. But don't get me wrong, I still get Monday morning blues and things like that. You know, there are, you know, I'm not like, woo, I'm not one of these people that I'm all the time, life is great. You know, we all have downers and we all have moments, oh gosh. But no, there's no aspect of my actual job. I do find tricky not so much the work-life balance, because I think I'm lucky that I've got that, but that doesn't mean it's stress-free. And I find juggling children and a house and a dog and 6 chickens and a cat and a husband, I find all of those things sometimes quite overwhelming, and that's the bit I don't like. However, I'm my own boss. Yep. And this week actually is a really good example. My youngest boy, Tom, he's 8 and he's been off sick all week. And on the one hand, I could have taken my hair out. I could have done something with my hair.
Done all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a moment yesterday where I actually could have burst into tears, genuinely, because I just wanted to get on with my work, actually, being blunt about it.
Yep.
But then at the same time, I was lucky enough that I was able to be there for him when he wasn't well, and I didn't have to answer to anybody else. I didn't have to explain to a boss. I didn't have to take it as annual leave. Yep. I still got my work done, albeit with interruptions of coughing fits and nosebleeds and and all of that malarkey. So whilst I was frustrated this week, I was just frustrated, not at Tom, not at, I was just frustrated because I just wanted to get on. Does that make me sound like an awful mother?
No. It's understanding priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah. On different days, you're going to have different priorities, and if you have to go to work in the same office every day, you'll be expected to show the same priority every day. But life's not like that.
No, it's not like that. And actually, poor Tom, yesterday, because he felt my frustration, he could see that I was getting frustrated. And he got a bit teary and was really apologetic. And I had to say to him, do you know what? Yeah, I have got frustrated, but not at you, just at the general situation. And actually, you come first. Whatever happens, you and your brother come first. Yeah. Reassure him that, yes, of course my work's important. I love my job. And I think that's really important to show to them as well. Responsibility, a working mum, good, strong female character and all of that kind of thing. Yep. But actually, of course, my children are always going to come first. Of course. Well,
naturally. Absolutely naturally. When you get sick, who takes care of you? Yeah. Right? It's not your colleagues at work.
No,
take
it's your family. And do you know what? I'm talking about that work-life balance and the juggling and all of that. I'm actually very lucky to have a really supportive family. My mum and dad live in the next village. My mother-in-law lives in the next village. We've got extended family all very nearby. Yep. And, Monday I did have a meeting and Tom went to my dad's for a couple of hours whilst I had that meeting. And, I am so lucky that I have that, because actually without that support network, I don't think that my business I think it would exist, but I don't think it would be as good as it is.
And that's a great example of what people don't see and can't see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they see the face of the business, the front of the business, the active person who's out there having the meetings, getting things done, traveling around. They don't see what happens to people in their own home behind the closed doors. No. They don't know what goes on there. And sometimes you need all the support and all the help and all the energy coming through there so that you can go out and do other
absolutely stuff. I joked that my mum and dad are actually just like unpaid staff. I had a blip recently. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I had a little blip recently where I was going to 2 award dinners and my dresses were in the dry cleaners. Ooh. And I messed something up, which meant I didn't make it to the dry cleaners on time. Dad, any chance you could nip through to Nairn and pick up, my dresses? Which he did. And if he hadn't, I would have got there, but the day would have been much more stressful. And I probably wouldn't have got as much work done, And it sounds really basic, but actually I was so grateful for that one little thing. I was so grateful for that, meant so much to me that my dad just flitted through to Nairn to pick up some dresses. He also paid for them. I haven't given him the money back yet. So that was another bonus.
There you go. Well, it's the little things, I think, that make the big differences. At the end of the day, the little things, like when you're tired and you don't have the energy or you don't have the time and someone else is there to either pick you up or pick something else up, that gives you that little bit of room to breathe, that if you don't have, it turns into a nightmare.
Absolutely. And small gestures as well. We're talking about Tom there. I do have another son, Adam, better mention him. But Tom, he was poorly this week and he asked for some sweeties. And I said, of course you can. And it was, the little packets of love hearts.
Oh, yeah.
They were like left over from Halloween. We're still getting through all the Halloween truck and we're just about to get into the Christmas truck. But, so he had like the teeny tiny packet and I'd brought my office downstairs so that at least I was with him. I wasn't upstairs in the office. Yeah. And I went off to the loo and came back. And then on my keyboard, there was the I love you, sweetie, that he'd left for me. And and actually, there's me kind of going, I can really do without this week. But actually, that just lifted me. I thought, you know what? This is why I'm doing what I do, so that I can be here for him and his brother and all of those other things that we've spoken about.
That's absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking about the next question now. Not exactly sure which way to go, because that's such a nice personal point to make. Thank you for sharing that. What's the most important thing for you work-wise at the moment? And when I ask this question, I'm thinking about the time of year that we're in, because we're sort of mid to end of November, and Christmas is coming.
Yeah, so in terms of my work, Christmas now, so one of my customers, we've been planning Christmas since January.
Wow.
Like, not so much my involvement since January. My Christmas with them started in about May, when we started planning all of the events. So it's Mackenzie and Quickshank, and basically from last weekend and the weekend before, right through now till, Christmas, they have events on constantly. And so I've been involved obviously in the planning of those and then the marketing of those. And actually I'm not long off the phone because we've had to make a couple of really exciting tweaks to something. So that, even though it's been planned for so long, things are still evolving.
Yeah.
And because of the reaction of the public to one of our events in particular, which we've never done before. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. It's Santa arriving.
Wow.
Santa's arriving. And we're just doing it we've just sort of added a few bells and whistles.
Yep.
And then the public have been really responding to the targeted Facebook adverts that we've put out and the event that's on Facebook. And so we're adding a bit more to it because we don't want to let the public down.
Yeah,
it's already going to be great, but I was on the phone on the way through to meet you, ringing people saying, are you available on December the 1st? And they're like, what, like in a week? And I'm like, yeah, in a week. So, so that's evolving. And then actually, probably my other thing now is I'm already thinking ahead to two of my other customers who have got events really starting in January and then right through to the summer.
Wow. So,
because event planning actually, it fits and starts, it can take you have to get the structure in place months before, the licenses and all of those things, and then stagger your publicity accordingly depending on what the event is. So at the moment, the main things are forward planning for events. Yeah,
it makes perfect sense. I was in Mackenzie and Cruikshank the other week.
I saw. I loved that you kept tagging us in it. I was like, this is great. Keep tagging.
Well, that's first of all, the events are great that are there, because it's great because it's bringing in more people. They're cultural. They are using the space that they've got in the right way. So many businesses have space in place, but they don't use it effectively. And they're definitely doing that there. And there's something else that I didn't realize, that they have the Christmas figure, or is it Santa and the reindeer and an elf with the faces cut out, and people
you can pop your face. Yeah. So I think we got that. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before that we got that. Did you do it?
Well, because it's perfect for me, because it's got 3 holes.
Yeah.
I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't actually me who did it. It was my partner. And I didn't even, because I was off doing my own thing in the shop and like, oh, look at all these markets and people and places, and there's so much to see and so much to look at. And my partner saw that with the kids, and she took pictures of them in that. And then, like, I didn't even know what happened. Then when we got home, she said, I have to send you these pictures that I took when you weren't there. And I got the pictures, and I was like, wow, that's a great idea, because everyone who takes a picture of their kids, not only is it fun and interesting to look at, but it's got the little Mackenzie and
It's got the branding.
It's got the branding and the logo in the corner, which is a nice way of sharing what's happening in a place and who's doing things. And I think it's important to know who's doing it and where they are, because this is an organization putting the effort in.
And I think that's a really good example, and that comes back to businesses. There are so many businesses doing absolutely fantastic things, but they're not getting the credit for it. That might be because they don't want the credit for it, but They should get the credit for it, because that's what makes Moray a great place to be. You know, I love where we live, and I love the fact that there are so many, you know, businesses, organizations, charities, trusts doing all of these wonderful things. And we should be shouting about all of these things a lot more. You know, people will want to come here more the more we shout about it. You know, the Christmas market thing at Mackenzie and Cruikshank, that, you know, that was Peter's way. Peter is the owner of using the space that, you know, at this time of year, it's dead space. You know, nobody's gardening at this time of year.
Absolutely.
But also what a lot of people don't know, and I need to shout about this louder, is that the money that he generates from the stalls goes to Mackenzie and Cruikshank's designated charity. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't, obviously he doesn't do these things. It drives footfall into the store, clearly. However, there's no direct money earned from that. It's all about getting footfall in, and then also providing that money from the stalls to our designated charity.
It's also a massive win-win, because the local stall owner, small company, provider, service, whatever they're doing or making. I remember from being there was the Speyside Soap Company, and there was what's it called, Mallow Nut or something, with the donuts with marshmallow things. And it was a nice mix of different ages. There was ages of people. There was a girl sitting at a table at the back who'd made like her own jewelry or something like that. And it's not just the organization and the public, it's all the people in between having the opportunity to communicate with the public and show what it is that they're making. Because I was talking to one of the stall owners, and he had to drive an hour from somewhere the other side of Inverness to get there just to have a stall and to share the fact that he was doing something. And if Mackenzie and Cruikshank don't give that opportunity, then nobody knows. Nobody knows. Absolutely. So it's great, and I don't know why more businesses are not so proactive. Maybe it's because they don't have somebody working in publicity for them who can help them out with that.
Maybe. I just think, I know what I'm like myself as well, though. We're all just so busy, you know, whether it be running our businesses or actually just life in general. I think that a lot of the time the thought of doing something else can send people over the edge. You know, it's like, I can't do that because actually I need time. But again, that's where, I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't, you know, it was members of staff that really set up the market and all that. It's not like I was there pulling out the tables or anything like that. I just helped them with the publicity. But that is where I can come in and help do things like that. You know, I do help my customers literally set up events, you know, pulling tables out and chairs. I'm quite happy to do that. I'm, you know, and sometimes actually if it's an event that I've made them do that they've never done before, I can be a bit of a control freak about it as well, and like to be there and make sure it is how I envisaged it being.
Well, somebody needs to be there. Somebody needs to help out. Somebody needs to bring in new ideas. Somebody needs to be able to share what it is that actually works. How do you stay informed and up to date about things happening within your sphere of business?
Within the industry? Probably partly through networking. So actually just going to events and, you know, meeting other marketers, other people who do publicity. I've got a good little network of friends now who are all in publicity in one form or the other. And obviously going to training things, you know, my friends always laugh when they go, "Oh, you've picked the Facebook workshop." And I'll go, "Yeah." And they're like, "But you do that all the time." And I'm like, yeah, I need to make sure I'm not missing something or doing something wrong, or, you know, just making sure that I am actually doing things. You know, I was recently, for example, at the Moray Speyside Tourism Conference, which is actually where we met.
Absolutely.
And I went to the social media workshop, and actually, one, it was just really entertaining, but two, it was just really reassuring, because all of the things the gentleman said, I was like, yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that. And that it was just a kind of self-check. Okay, I'm okay. I'm keeping on top of this. But I am not afraid to pick up the phone to somebody or email somebody or visit somebody and say, I don't know. You know, I don't do digital marketing. Right. I collaborate with another business, Moray Digital, run by Sean Moat, and Alison Reed as well. They are my two go-tos for digital marketing. I'm sure I could do it if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't have the time. And also, actually, in using Alison and Sean, I've essentially got 2 colleagues who I can bounce ideas off. Do you think this will work? Even if it's not actually directly related to them doing the digital marketing, I've got this idea. Do you think this will work? How would you do it? And that's what I love actually about working on my own, but also having this huge network of people that I can tap into, and then me for advice. And I think, I'm not criticizing anybody who works in an office. I worked in an office for years, but it was pretty much the same staff all the time. So you become a bit stale and things like that. And I don't feel that I've ever become stale. And certainly the people that I work with haven't become stale, because we're always out meeting new people and getting new perspectives. And that's one thing that I've learned, actually, of one of the huge benefits of what I do and how I work, is that actually my network has been widened so much and benefited me. When I say me, I don't mean the business, benefited Claire, the person, because I've got all these lovely people now we're all working within the same industry, work with a fantastic graphic designer now, a branding expert. So it's all connected, but we're all bringing something different to the same party, if that makes sense.
It does. It sounds like there's quite a bit of freedom there to choose different paths and different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll use different people for different customers as well, depending on what I think will work best for that customer as well. So no, I feel very lucky. And I'm a huge believer in collaboration. And I don't necessarily just mean, businesses collaborating, i.e. me working with Sean or Alison, or me working with Claire Locke, the graphic designer. I don't just mean that. For example, to use the Doors Open Day thing that we did. So Forres is fantastic in that, I think, I'm rubbish with numbers, but I think out of the 30 odd places that were open throughout Moray, I think we had about 11 in the Forres area. So I had AJ Engineering with their wonderful open day. And I also had the Forres Heritage Trust, who had the toll booth and Nelson's Tower open.
Yep.
And
I was there.
Were you?
Toll booth, I think it was that day.
Did you go down to the new jail project and all of that?
There's characters in the cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic new project. They're trying to bring this all back to life and basically create it as a new tourist attraction. And that was the first time as a test that those cells and the police office were opened. And, the idea was to run it, see how it went, and get the feedback from the customers, the visitors, and then obviously improve before it officially opens. So I'm glad you went. That's great.
No, it was fantastic. And the best part for us, I think, was there's a courtroom upstairs. And it's done in the original old style. And so there's a whole educational opportunity.
Absolutely.
Well.
And that's one of the things that I'm on the sidelines at the moment. The team that are doing that, they're all volunteers. They've been visiting different attractions around the country, actually. In fact, around the world. One of them they didn't go to Australia for this purpose, but they went to Australia and then visited like tourism prisons, if you like, in Australia to get ideas. And I love that. That again, I'm working with this vibrant group of people who want to do something really good for their town and this historic building. But what we did for Doors Open Day, rather than me doing AG Engineering is going to open its doors, the Forres Heritage Trust is going to open its doors, I actually spoke to the guy at Moray Council and asked if he would put out an email from me to all of the Forres premises or the Forres area premises saying, I want to issue one press release about making Forres your destination for Doors Open Day. And, that was far more powerful.
Absolutely.
Because all I would have done is had 2 press releases fighting for the same bit of space, Forres Heritage Trust, AG Engineering. And actually we just put out one press release about all of the fantastic things that were happening in Forres. Clearly I did use the quotes from my customers, but it worked, it worked much better doing it that way. And that's what I'm talking about with collaboration. It's bringing those things together. Like, again, the Whiskey Festival's coming up next May, and the Forest Heritage Trust will be involved in that again, but I would love to see more forest businesses doing an event for the Whiskey Festival, because again, we can sell it as one destination for that weekend. You know, it's not, there's amazing things going across the whole of Moray Speyside for that, but my focus is forests. You know, that's what I want to promote. And if we can get more businesses on board and doing smaller things or bigger things, you know, whatever, I'm more than happy then to sell that as Forest is embracing the Whiskey Festival, just as an example.
Which is a great example, especially of the power of synergy.
Yes.
And bringing different people from different areas together for the same cause or the same purpose.
Definitely.
What a great idea. Thank you. Thank you for having that idea. It's a very nice idea. I like that. Thank you very much for listening to part 1. I hope you enjoyed it and that you will share it with your friends. Stay tuned for part 2 coming in the next few days.
Made in Moray is a product of the Academy of Language Therapy and Life Coaching. Book a free online personal or professional development consultation today. What are you waiting for?